Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the ShopNotes Podcast. I'm your host, Phil Huber, joined by Logan Whitmer and John Doyle. Today is episode number 82. On today's show, we're going to be talking about design, drawings, and plans, among a variety of other things. So I hope you enjoy today's show. I want to remind you today's episode is brought to you by Shaper Tools, the makers of the Shaper Origin, the handheld CNC router that brings digital precision to the craft of woodworking. Tackle joinery, cabinetry, hardware installation, and more with speed and precision. Try it risk-free in your shop for 30 days. Visit shapertools.com to learn more.
So based on the topic today, I feel like this is an ambush by Mark and Steve, our shop guys, of grilling me about drawings.
Right. Well,
where are the drawings?
Here's where that came from my perspective. Is I just finished two projects recently, my big workbench and the cabinet that I made for my sister. And then just today, we wrapped up a magazine issue and sent it out to the printers to turn from Acrobat PDFs into printed pages. And what was interesting is that for my workbench, I was going off, for the most part, some plans from ShopNotes. And I would say probably 90%, probably 85% was pretty much straight up following the plans from ShopNotes. The cabinet for my sister, on the other hand, was sort of a couple of sketches in my shop notebook that I keep. And then it was just sort of made up as I go along. And yet for the magazine, we take great pains to come up with a good procedure, solid design, lots of drawings, especially from the designers for the shop craftsmen. And then we translate those to, illustrated drawings for the magazine. So the question that I have for you guys is, it's a two-part question. How do you see yourself building projects? Do you draw out full plans, like either pencil and paper or SketchUp or on a computer? And then how do you actually do it?
Mm-hmm. I guess for me, if I'm just building something for myself, a lot of times it's just kind of like you. I'll sketch out kind of the general size for scale, and then I can build from there for the most part. And a lot of times if we do have plans of something I'm building for a magazine, it's a lot of modifying to my needs or my scale of project. So we'll do some changing. I don't know if it's more complicated, I guess, though I'll draw it out, and because just in general, it's hard to get a size of scale on certain things. So it's good to kind of model things out as well, I guess, if it's really complicated. But
yeah. So like, for example, I'm thinking of three projects for you, John, that I know of. Let's do four. Obviously so we could do the playhouse you did, was plans, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Then what about the, there was that bath cabinet that you finished not that long ago.
Yeah, like the built-in kind of linen cabinet outside of our bathroom.
Yeah. How did you do that? Did you?
I think, I found drawings from it from like 2007 or something. So I must have kind of drawn out, because it's kind of in an odd spot just outside of the bathroom door. So I was trying to fit it to that exact spot, and the way the ceiling above it kind of comes up, it's underneath the stairs. So it's got a kind of an angled ceiling, and then trying to fit it behind the door opening and next to the other stair. So I drew that one all out. But I didn't necessarily draw the drawers to detail or the all the parts of the doors or the cabinet. It was more drawing it as a solid piece,
Right.
to get it to scale, and then I could, extrapolate the parts out from there, I guess. So just, I drew that one out kind of in general to get it to scale and make sure it would fit in that opening. And then I didn't need all the parts drawn out. So that one was, kind of half drawn. The playhouse I built from some Workbench plans from 25 years ago. And the way they had it set up didn't really work for my yard because it's kind of fit into a side yard between the driveway and a tree and the neighbor's yard. And there's a basketball pole in there. And so just trying to, I guess, set it up as far as the way the swings would swing wouldn't hit the neighbor's landscaping or
Right.
the basketball pole or the garage. And the way the slide came down didn't really work because that would have dumped the kids right out into the driveway. So kind of reconfigured it to fit for my yard. And then there was a lot of details in there. Like I think they used like cedar shingles on the roof, and I just used asphalt shingles. And so kind of used it for general design and shape, but then I reconfigured everything to fit my needs. And then I used some of the details, I guess, on it, but then customized the ladder and a lot of the other things. So,
Right.
but so again, used it to kind of get the main idea and some of the design details, but then customized it for my use.
Sure.
So
Then what about like the you did the basement jungle gym and loft bed.
Yeah, the basement jungle gym. I don't think I drew any of that out. That was like built to fit an opening in our basement, and it was a tight fit. I think I took home some parts at one time and kind of scribed to the walls, and that was definitely built on the fly there. I had the jungle gym all constructed here and to assemble there. And I remember my wife was like 20 weeks pregnant with our youngest, and she's kind of like just watching me try to get this all fitted and assembled. And it's like, you can't help me at all, but you're there to call 911 if this falls on me. So that was a lot of just... Yeah, and that was weird too because I had to build it all here and then construct it all there basically in one day while the kids were, I don't remember, they were probably hanging out with their cousins that day because it was like a Christmas gift and a surprise. So it wasn't much back and forth. It was like customize it and hope it fits there. And when I was putting in the monkey bars part that was like built to fit in between the two walls, I remember I took out a corner of the drywall trying to put it in, and that would have been, let's see, my youngest, who my wife was pregnant with, is now 6, so that was over 6 years ago, and I just fixed that chunk of drywall this week. So don't ever hire me to do drywall because it takes some time. So so that was the same with the treehouse loft. Was the same thing. Christmas gift. I did a lot of measuring there and double checking and building here, and then, as you guys know, same thing. I had to build it in a day while the kids were out because it was a Christmas gift, and I assumed that our ceiling was 8 feet, and apparently it is 7 feet 6 inches in that room. So there was some running back to the shop and reconfiguring after the fact. But that was another thing that kind of just built on the fly and make it up as I go. But they turned out pretty well.
All right.
So, yeah.
So would your preference be that you would draw stuff out? Maybe not to the extent that you do for the designs you do for the magazine. But
I mean,
or-
that would be preferential. Will I ever do that? I don't know that I would, because it seems like everything I built is just kind of a working prototype. So
right.
build it and see if it works, and then cuss and wish I would have drawn it out, I guess. But
Yeah. Iterative design, I believe, is the phrase that people use.
Yes. So,
Logan, how about you?
So the way I usually draw out projects is to hand it to John and say, John, can you draw this for me? At least when I need an actual drawing for something, such as this toolbox from the most recent Popwood issue.
Oh, did that issue come out?
So all the drawings, it did. It came out. It should be hitting people's inboxes this week. So I got samples last week. So usually, I guess it depends on what I'm building. Like if I'm building based on a design, first off, I don't generally. It's been very rare that I've actually built something from one of our plans, just because I have a very particular style I like. So if I'm building based on something, usually I will start with some form of napkin sketch, for lack of a better term, just to figure out proportions. I never really draw stuff out. I mean, really, I'll draw out some components. I have a sketch in my book downstairs of a dining room chair for the table I built last year.
Right.
And I really just sketched out the back leg because everything is based on the back leg. So, where the mortise is where the seat rails are going to go. And then, the seat rails are a pretty standard size, and the front legs will be based on, again, the mortise height on the back leg. So usually I'm just building to fit. Again, there might be particular dimensions that are critical, I guess it's really more proportions that are critical.
Yeah.
However, it's very rare that I will draw anything out. The only time I actually ever will model something out, like in SketchUp, is if I'm building it for somebody.
Okay.
So something like the poker table I did last summer, I modeled that out in SketchUp to get not necessarily sizes, but to get proportions again right, and show the people I was building it for what it was going to look like, or what my idea was. But as far as building something, I mean, I will base it on dimensions. So right now, the next project I'll be working on, the next furniture project I'll be working on, is going to be a little humidor for Popwood. And I know that I want it to hold a certain number of cigars of a certain size. So that's my determining measurement. The rest of them are irrelevant.
Sure.
Really.
Yeah.
So that's I guess always my thing is, until there's a specific place it needs to fit, like John's Playhouse in the basement, the Jungle Gym, or something, everything's really irrelevant as far as measurements go. I mean, there are standard sizes. There's standard table heights.
Yeah.
There's standard chair heights. But then the dimensions of the table are, who cares if it's 36 inches or 38 inches
right.
deep. So very rarely will I fully draw something out. And a lot of times it's dependent on the material I'm working on too. Like if I have, a certain amount of material, and I start working with it, and all of a sudden, I can't get a table top width that I want. Okay, maybe everything becomes slightly shorter.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I was thinking
now,
of the nightstands that you did.
Draw stuff.
Those were very dependent on your materials. Like I think you had an overall size that you were shooting for, but then it was like by the time you cut out some checks and defects, all of a sudden, guess what? The nightstands are going to be this deep.
Exactly. Well, yeah, and it was, I had, God, it was so long ago that I started that, and then I finished it just a couple months ago. I glued up the panels. So I glued up three boards to get the depth I needed. And then I was cutting the top, sides, and bottom continuous grain out of this board. So it's like, you know what? I'm going to get them out of here. So either the width of it's going to change or the depth or the height of it's going to change to get what I need. And again, the nightstands are a great example. I know what I wanted the proportions to be as far as the drawer versus the opening below the drawer. And everything else was irrelevant. I just knew what the proportion was going to be, so I laid it out how I wanted it. So, you know, and it's funny. I always approach a turning with like if I'm turning something on the lathe, I always approach it with an idea of what I want it to be. It never ends up being that because, you know, I'm going to be a little bougie here and say I let the wood tell me what it wants to be. I mean,
it kind of wanted to be a tree, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, until it got cut down. But I mean, as far as like sometimes the shape just changes as you're working on it. It's like, oh, hey, you know what? I didn't mean to make that cut, but that looks really good, so I'm gonna take that and run with it. Not what I was planning on.
Yeah.
You know, or sometimes if I'm working on a turning and it's like, you know what? I got some tear out here. I need to make one more cut, and it makes the foot a little smaller than it was before. You know, everything just changes based on that. So, so I'm not necessarily a full drawer. I will sketch stuff out just to put some numbers. You know, I'll give myself 1 or 2 measurements to start everything off of. You know, maybe like a case height and width, but then everything inside is dependent on that opening. So then I'm just cutting parts to fit. So
right.
It's just a very my building approach is very free form. Like, you know what, it's gonna end up being what it is. As long as I hit a couple dimensions that I want, I don't really care. So
yeah. I when I first started at Woodsmith and read a little bit from James Krenoff, and I will admit early on that I was not a super experienced woodworker. And you read somebody like Krenoff or Nakashima, and it comes off kind of sounding a little frou-frou and, I don't know, just a little too self-absorbed. But I will say that one thing that as I've grown as a woodworker, that I've appreciated, especially about Krenoff, was his idea of composing a piece that he talks about with his design, where it's like, you know, it's exactly like we've been talking about. It's either got to fit this certain space, or I have this general shape that I'm working towards, or overall dimensions. But after that, it kind of becomes, hey, what kind of material do I have available? You know, what are the limits put on me by that material? And then from there, you know, like the shape of the grain can make you say, hey, we maybe need to put a curve in there, or, you know, kind of dictate joinery or something like that. So, so that's for sure. You know, like I mentioned earlier, I keep a little notebook that I call my shop notebook. It's got some gridded paper. So for example, for the people who are watching this, listening on YouTube, there's the drawings that I did for my sister's cabinet. So there's not a lot of detail there, but it just kind of highlights what are the main points and some of the things that I'm trying to look for. Then I had a couple other projects here that I was thinking too, that I did a small dining table for my sister-in-law and did some drawings there. And again, it's kind of like you were saying, Logan, where it's dining tables are usually like 29 inches high. So I kind of knew that I had that to work with. The part that was complicated for me was the leg joinery, you know, where tenons were going to be and shapes on that kind of thing. So spent a little bit more time trying to figure those out. And then that's what I drew. And then from there it was, just ideas that I had for shapes, and then that are almost traced and free-formed on there on the pieces themselves. And then you kind of cut and start working on it,
Oh, I say, what I'm going to start doing is all my shop drawings, I'm going to start writing all the dimensions in metric just to make people's heads explode.
Which I did actually
Except
have
the rest
that.
of the world.
Now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
So anyway, here's what I was going to say is, I know for the magazine and we have to, and there's good reasons for it, is to dimension every part, in overall size, case pieces, face frames, on a cabinet or something, doors and drawers and all the parts that go with it. But on the other hand, like once you build the cabinet itself, the door and drawer dimensions are derived from that rather than the set of plans.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how perfectly you cut your parts.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to build the doors and drawers first in a project and then try to fit them to a independent cabinet.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other thing that's funny too is that we've built a lot of projects for the TV show from plans from the magazine, and we were kind of alluding to the fact that a lot of things are arbitrary and you can kind of just build them kind of as you want to after you get the first set of parameters. And we've been building things, and a lot of times we'll run into something. It's like, well, why did they do it this way? This is kind of dumb. We're going to do it our own way. And then we get towards the end and we're like, oh, that's why they did that. My bad. So sometimes it is good to follow the plans, but
yeah,
a lot of times you can get away with changing it up.
One example of that is for YouTube, John, you did that revolving tool station.
Mm-hmm.
And so you followed the plans pretty closely on that. I had made one, I think just a few months prior to that with my father-in-law over it was like a Christmas break or something like that. He wanted it for his shop, and it seemed like a cool project, and it was a fun time. We had a blast doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things we got to on the big turntable section are these small drawers that you could put accessories and whatever. And the drawer sides had these weird little cutouts on the
Mm-hmm.
sides. And I'm like, why are these here? This seems like an unnecessary step. So we didn't do it.
Yeah.
Assembled the drawers, got them all together. And then since they're not very deep, the plans call for having little drawer stops in there, so that as you pull it out, the upper back edge of the drawer back kind of bonks against that stop and you can't go any farther. However, because of the shape of the drawer and that turntable and where the stops are, you can't put the drawers in if they have straight sides. The little
Right.
cutouts in there are so you can tip the drawer in underneath that stop to be able to push it all the way in,
Mm-hmm.
which didn't dawn on me until I had done that.
Yeah. The moment of discovery.
Right.
Just
Yeah.
like, oh, okay.
Oh, so that's why they did that.
Genius.
So I ended up having the drawers like mostly in, and then having to contort myself to install the stops.
Yeah.
So those drawers are in there now.
Okay. They're permanent.
They're permanent.
Yeah.
So,
Live and learn.
yep. Oh yeah. That's why they call it practicing woodworking.
Right. Exactly.
Logan, before I thought when you said the next project for Popular Woodworking, I thought you were going to say it was going to be doors and drawers for your wife's office.
Ooh.
Ouch. Rude. True, but rude. No, I was actually thinking about that this morning because I was sitting at my dining room table editing some video, And where I sit on our dining room table faces our living room in here, and we have a mantle above our fireplace and stuff. And I have a bunch of my recent turnings are sitting up there. And my wife doesn't particularly. She doesn't necessarily. My wife likes our built-ins upstairs to be nice and like decorated, and like, you know, designer comes in and sets them up and whatever. So she doesn't like me randomly putting my turnings on the shelves in our living room. And I was thinking, you know, I'm getting to a point where I need to move them somewhere else. And the office, the built-ins in our office, are a great place for them. So I can't do that until I finish said built-ins. So, well-timed comment, Phil. I have everything to do it. Like, I have everything. I have all the materials. I just have not. The thing I'm lacking is the motivation. So.
Right. Well, I remember you had set yourself a deadline to do it at one point earlier this year.
Yeah, it was like March, but I did not say 21 or 22.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You got time.
We're going to say March 22. I got plenty of time.
So that's officially on the YouTubes now.
Yep.
So February 22, we're going to bring this back up.
Yep.
We're
Follow up.
pounding it out.
So I will say that as we're recording this, two kind of fun things are happening in the state of Iowa right now. First is that on recording day is the first day of the Iowa State Fair, which, since we did not have a state fair in 2020, I think is going to be a pretty big event this year. And I'm pretty excited to go to it. And I know that our very own Chris Fitch was one of the judges for the woodworking exhibits that are there. So it'll be fun. It's always fun to see people put themselves out there to build something and then have other people critique it and get judged for the fair. So,
yeah.
And I'm always amazed at the variety of pieces too. Like, we have a pretty strong wood carving community in Iowa, which may sound odd, but we have some pretty world-class carvers.
So much so that they
and some
have
pretty
their
strong
own,
turners too.
Like, yeah, like the wood carvers have their own division that gets judged separately from the other woodworking. Like, there's some like world-class carvers, which was really cool.
Yeah. I know some of the birds and fish that they do, you just sort of, it's like their taxidermy. That's how good it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah, I like to go check out all the woodworking projects. Yeah, because there's a lot of variety between carving and furniture and turning and all that. And I mean, there's some pretty amazing work done there. I also like to go check out the 4-H building because there's a lot of woodworking projects in there done by the kids, and they're always really creative and talented and beyond what I was at that age. So it's always cool to see what they come up with. So that's another place I like to check out.
That's true. So if you're anywhere near the state of Iowa in these next 2 weeks through August 22nd of 2021, then you should be sure to check it out. It's a fun time. The other event is the baseball game tonight at Field of Dreams. Mm-hmm. So you can go watch.
Do you guys know anybody that won the lottery to buy the tickets?
I don't. Yeah, I don't know how many fans they're having at that game.
I know one guy.
Oh, yeah?
I want to say there was 8,000 tickets, if I remember right. There was like 8,000 tickets, and you had to be a resident of Iowa, I believe, to enter the raffle to buy the tickets. So I know one guy that got a pair of tickets. So somebody said that they were selling like for a ridiculous amount. like the ticket scalpers. But I don't know. So it'd be cool to see. I'm guessing it's probably going to become a regular thing. Don't you think?
I would hope so. I think it would be kind of a fun venue or experience to do that. It's like when the NHL started playing a few games outside.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that's super cool. I know it wouldn't work necessarily for every climate, but I always thought NBA would be super cool to see an NBA game played outside. Like,
Yeah,
I think they tried to play a college basketball game on a aircraft carrier deck one time or something like that, and I don't remember if it didn't work out because there was too much condensation or something on the court or what the deal was. But yeah, that'd be cool to kind of see some street basketball.
Yeah,
like in a park somewhere.
Yeah, because I'm thinking, I lived in Chicago for a while, and there were a few pretty sweet basketball courts in the parks along the lakefront, that are just, they're playground, park basketball, but you could put stands around it, and it would be you'd have views of the city and the lake. And
yeah, when I grew up in Philadelphia, basketball court is where I spent most of my days. So,
and you got into a little trouble.
That was the wrong one.
Yeah, I got in one little fight, and my mom got scared, so she sent me over here. And actually, the funny thing is I actually do live on Bel Air in Ankeny, so it works.
Just not with your auntie and uncle.
Yeah.
All right, then. So, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. That's it for me. I'm closing out here. See you guys.
Yeah. Say, how long till they kick us off podcasting?
Right. Can they do that? Can anybody stop us? It's kind of like public access here.
Oh, man.
Exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So do you guys have any... Now, Logan, you were talking about your Humidor project coming up.
Yeah.
You want to describe that a little bit more? Do you have any more of a concept other than it's got to fit a certain type of cigar?
Yeah, so I have recently, and this probably comes from all the turning I've been doing. I've become really interested in like the mixture of textures, right? I've mentioned this before when I was talking about adding fur to a project, and I got all these people mad at me.
Right.
But so what I'm thinking is, if you picture a standard humidor, right? It's just a box. It's a box. Spanish cedar lining on the inside, which actually doesn't come from Spain, comes from Central America. Did not know that. But the Spanish cedar helps regulate the humidity, and the resins in the Spanish cedar help enhance the flavor of cigars. So, box, Spanish cedar lining, and the outside, I've been trying to figure out what to do with, making it different. And I think we're going to make it out of ash, okay? And I just like the poetry of a cigar humidor made out of ash. Like, I just like that. And then the outside is going to be scorched and scrubbed. So I did that with the cribbage board.
Yes.
That we did last season on the Woodsman Shop. So if you scorch it extremely hard, I'm not talking about, the middle school project where you lightly hit it with a propane torch. I'm talking about burning the crap out of it till it crackles red. And then you wire brush all that loose carbon off, and you're left with a really organic texture on the surface of the ash. And the late wood and early wood burn at different rates. So you get this really nice wood grain texture, but it's charcoal black. So we're going to do that on the outside. I might have a couple of bevels on there to add some form of shape, so it's just not a square box.
Right.
But then we're going to do like a super high gloss, glassy, smooth lid on it. And I haven't decided if that is going to be just like I kind of like the idea of a like heavily spalted maple to tie in the light and then the black lines in the maple. But I haven't decided yet. But I really like the idea of that contrast between the matte textured black box with a glassy, smooth lid. So kind of where I'm going. I'm going for a couple trays on the inside, some dividers that you can change around depending on what type of cigar, or what size of cigar. Cigars come in probably 8 different sizes. And I did decide, instead of doing the whole, hydrometer and, the water, the distilled water packets and stuff, I'm not doing any of that. Nowadays we have the Boveda packets. They are little paper packets that have a like silica gel in them that regulate humidity. Okay. So you buy a pack of 5 of them, you throw one in the humidor in a sleeve in a holder that will be inside the lid, and it regulates humidity for 6 months, and then after 6 months you pull it out, throw it away, put a new one in. So it's a pretty good way to easily regulate humidity. So yeah, that's kind of the next project on my list for Popwood. So I will be starting on that in the next couple of weeks. I do have there's a weird order of building this thing, because when you scorch the outside of wood, it creates a lot of stress, because it super dehydrates the outside that you're burning. So you can get some warping. So trying to figure out the proper order of processes to do this. To me, I almost think, I need to start with thicker stock, scorch it all black, and then plane the backside down, do all the joinery, assemble it, and then any areas that are rough wood come back, or raw wood, come back and re-scorch them. And I think that's the way I'm going to tackle it. Okay. But we will see.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's definitely, I see that technique being used more and more. I mean, not to the point of epoxy river tables, but I think it ends up being almost an afterthought on a lot of projects, where it's like, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. How about I just burn it? And then I get to use a fun Japanese word, and then we're good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and the thing that I don't think people take it far enough. So a lot of people will just the whole burning thing, it conjures this image in my head of pallet wood projects. Because it's like, oh, hey, yeah. I mean, doesn't it? Tell me if I'm wrong, but it's like, to me, it's like, oh, hey, I built this coffee table out of pallet wood, and look at what I did with the propane torch. I lightly toasted the grain.
Caramelized it.
No, we're going for you caramelized it. It's like, no, we're looking for scorched black. This thing. Yes, we want this to be hell on earth. It needs to be scorched and crackling red and raw.
So you're looking more for almost an ebonized finish, a textured ebonized finish.
Exactly. It will be a textured ebonized type finish. Yes. The thing that ebonizing doesn't do, with ash at least, is it doesn't give you the texture. The ebonizing will give you the color for sure, but it will not give you the texture that I'm looking for. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting. It'll be fun, I think.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So you want cracks and fissures and that kind of texture?
Do you want that alligator kind of skin look to it?
No, I don't think so. Because generally, when you wire brush it after you've scorched it, it knocks all that alligator skin off. And what you're left with is you get a really deep burn where the late wood is, and where the early wood is, you get it almost becomes topographical, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So So not crackly. It will it'll still
cool.
be fairly smooth, but just with that grain texture. We'll see. It might fall. I might fall on my face on this deal. It might not work. So
Yeah, but we'll be there for you,
and
man.
everybody will now know. Yes, everybody will now
It'll
know
make for
if
a
it
good
doesn't work.
story.
Yep.
It will. So
Cool. John, you got any projects you're working on now?
Like I alluded to earlier, I am just doing a lot of drywalling right now, which would be a little drywalling for a professional, but I'm really like stretching it, because I'm not good at it. So that's what I'm working on at
well,
my
you're not
house.
bad at it though. We've seen
I'm not
your
bad at it.
drywalling. You're not bad
Yeah,
at
I
it.
like a heavy texture. I mean, you've seen my MO when it comes to drywall.
Mm-hmm.
I lay it on thick.
It's the step before stucco.
Right. So
Or after?
Which, to be fair, when you texture that heavy, you don't have to be good at drywall.
right.
Yeah.
I get it all finished nice and smooth, and I just splatter it.
Yeah.
So yeah, now I'm gonna be doing some knockdown ceiling stuff. So hopefully it doesn't turn out that bad. But
Is it repair or is it actual?
well, it started out there was a couple of like there's two spots in our house where like the doorknob had put a hole in the drywall. So I was fixing that, and then our basement had never been like I've redone most of the stuff in our house, and the basement had never been redone, and it had that old popcorn ceiling, and a lot of the tape had popped on it and was like peeling off. So just basically the whole thing needed to be redone. But it's like a lot of like bulkheads and stuff around vents. So there's a ton of corners and inside corners, outside corners, and all the stuff that I had to retape when I scraped off all the popcorn. So it's just a lot of working on it, waiting for stuff to dry and other coats.
But you'll be good at it by the end of it.
Right. A lot of plastic all over the place, floors, furniture, everything. So
looks like a scene from Dexter.
yes, exactly. So, but
see, we had a section of our ceiling in our house repaired professionally, and it's knocked down, and that is the hardest thing to blend.
Oh, yeah.
If you're trying to repair knockdown texture, it's like you can't do it.
It's like,
I mean,
you just got to start all over.
And that's what they ended up doing when they built our houses. We had a seam that popped like a week after they did the original texture on it, and they tried to repair it. And I told my builders, I was like, nope, that looks terrible. And they were like, oh yeah, that looks awful. So they actually went through and scraped our entire ceiling and redid it. Because you can't. I mean, it just sucks. I'm sure there's guys that are good at it, going with a sponge and stuff and do it, but it's just nope, not I.
Our upstairs living room and kitchen ceiling, when we moved in, it looked like rolled on like plaster, and I basically had to kind of scrape it down and remud the entire ceiling to get it smooth enough to do anything with, and it's just like the messiest job, but really works out the shoulders,
Mm-hmm.
So bulk
Feel
up.
the burn.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Phil, what are you working on?
I have a couple of gift projects that I'm working on right now. So, and I'm actually, this may come as a surprise to you, I'm getting close to completing my router mortiser finally. So,
Wow.
Yep.
So that's one project down. That means you need to add two more.
Right. Yeah. So I'm going to have to think of something else.
You don't have three balls in the air. You're not doing it right.
So I have a bunch of fur left over from my Workbench project, and I'm trying to think what else I can do with it, because it just feels like something else needs to happen with it. Like when you got a big pile of white fur, everything looks like a softwood project.
yeah, birdhouse.
That's right.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's true. I actually finished a birdhouse that I had started a long time ago, too. We did a round birdhouse for the TV show. And it's just a cool plan. And it was one of those that I never thought that I would want to do because it looked complicated. but it's not. And it's actually really forgiving as a project. And then we had gotten, I don't know who sent it to us. It was a piece of cypress from like the Louisiana, found this cypress at the bottom of a river lumber company, something like that.
.com.
It was a company that specialized in recovering sinker cypress.
Yeah. So we weren't sure what to do with it because it was a decent sized piece, but not humongous either. So I ended up cutting it up into a bunch of strips for the staves for this round birdhouse, and then resawing it to get the round sections out of it. And the cool thing about it is the cypress had taken on a kind of like a fun green tint to it. Almost looked like it had been dyed a green color. And then with I kept, cut it so that I had really straight grain in it. So it's got a really fun look to it. So, and then I added some paint and a copper roof, and finally got the hanging hardware ready. So way too late for nesting season here in Iowa, but the 2022 crop of spring birds will find a really sweet house. So it's exciting.
Good.
All right, I think that wraps it up for another episode of the ShopNotes Podcast. If you have any questions, comments, or smart remarks, please leave them in the comments section on our YouTube channel, where you can watch the episode and see some of the things that we're talking about. Don't forget to check out our show notes page at woodsmith.com/podcasts. If you want to write to us, you can send those same comments and airing of grievances to woodsmith@woodsmith.com. You can find the Shop Notes Podcast wherever you find podcasts. We're in all the places. You can also check us out, like I said, on YouTube or on our website to see it there. Thanks for listening. And just a reminder that today's episode is brought to you by Shaper Tools, makers of the Shaper Origin, the handheld CNC router that brings digital precision to the craft of woodworking. You can tackle joinery, cabinetry, hardware installation, and more with both speed and precision. Shaper is offering that you can try it risk-free in your shop for 30 days. Just check out shapertools.com to learn more. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you next week. Bye.